It is 2005, and the children's television network Noggin is about to premiere one of the most unique shows in its library, Jack's Big Music Show. The show was created by brothers David and Adam Woodman, and centered around a tournette of music-obsessed kids, Jack, Mary, and their dog Mel. Now, the show was made as an experiment with children's music to see how it could be used to entertain children and tell a story. Hi, you can call me Crystal. I'm here to show what this show for 4-year-olds is really made of. It is an art form, containing a lot of heart, comedy, love, and lots of musical joy. We're going to be talking about its history, its cast and crew, the characters, all 26 episodes of its 2 seasons, its many songs, and the heart and emotion that makes the show what it is. I personally have a firm belief that this show is a hidden gem, and I hope by the end of this, you might come to understand why.
Make more music with Jack and his friends on Jack's Big Music Show. Every day. Only on Noggin.
So with that, you might be wondering where we're starting. Well, we're going a little bit far back in history. Not that far, but a little bit far back. To the year 1979 was with the premiere of the channel Nickelodeon. There wasn't much on this point, but it's just a note that Nickelodeon premiered during this year with the show Pinwheel. During this time frame, Nickelodeon would build up its roster of shows, mostly consisting of children's sitcoms and variety shows. During 1988, the Nick Jr. block was created, which was a block that ran from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., airing 3 hours worth of Pinwheel and other shows throughout the years as educational-based programming. This was done to widen the appeal of Nickelodeon as a children's network, but what later became a mandate of other children's networks thanks to the passing of the Children's Television Act of 1990. This mandated that 3 hours of every children's-based network had to be dedicated to educational-based content. So, Nickelodeon, while it's already ahead of the game, had to do this anyway. With this, Nickelodeon expanded its roster of shows to air during this block. They added shows during the late 90s and early 2000s. They added shows such as Blue's Clues, Little Bear, Franklin, Aleko's Window, Ubi, Gullah Island, and much more to this lineup. During this time frame, Nickelodeon and its parent company, Viacom, will reach a deal with Sesame Workshop to expand its Nick Jr. branding to a separate network and separate TV channel. This would become Noggin, which was a collaboration between Sesame Workshop and Nickelodeon to air its secondary educational content on a more often schedule on a network completely dedicated to it. All the shows I mentioned earlier will move to this network in 1999. Along with the addition of regularly aired Sesame Street episodes and the adaptation spin-off of Sesame Street known as Play With Me Sesame, that was simply a variety show using a couple of the characters in various skits. In the background of all this, Sesame Street performer David Woodman and his brother, writer Adam Woodman, were working in the puppeteer industry, and both recently split off from Sesame Workshop and created their own distribution company known as Spiffy Productions. The two of them formed this company in the year 2000 and started brainstorming ideas. The main show of discussion, of course, being Jack's Big Music Show. During the year 2002, David and Adam Woodman started brainstorming for this show, coming up with the concept. Though not much is known about the original notes, it is known that the two pitched the concept in 2003 to Noggin executives, who gave them the opportunity to film one pitch pilot episode to further show off the show's possible capabilities. As mentioned before, the show was mostly an experiment based off children's television music, which is the medium that was mostly untapped when it came down to a variety show, solely using it as a storytelling device. David and Adam Woodman would use the pilot of the show, known as Jack's Big Show, to try to pinpoint how they can utilize this medium to tell a story. I will be talking about the pilot solely a bit later, but generally for the confines of this segment, then you just have to know that it was a success. During the year 2004, the show would get a 13-episode first season and start filming it. It is unknown the exact filming dates of the season, but it is known it was filmed during 2004 and ending in 2005. This 13-episode first season really is paced like an experiment. 13 individual stories that are independent of each other with 13 independent plots and it plots with the three main characters. The first season was filmed with a small group of performers, puppeteers, set designers, and the whole shebang, with David and Adam Woodman writing most of the show's episodes. After the show finished filming, about 7 months went by, till September of 2005, where the first episode of the first season would premiere. The episode, The Little Bad Wolf. While yes, it was not the first episode in production order, as you guys will learn a little bit later, the show was a big success and became pretty popular, mostly for its unique nature and appeal outside of the 40-year-old demographic.
Hey everybody, it's me, Jack! Here's a little behind-the-scenes look at how we rock this clubhouse!
1, 2, 3, 4.
Jack's Big Music Show isn't exactly your typical puppet show. Well, it is in the base sense, but it has a lot more to it than just being a musical puppet show. It was filmed in Chicago, Illinois, most likely in Spiffy's office in St. John's Avenue in Highland Park. This isn't exactly confirmed where the show was filmed, but it was a conclusion I was able to draw due to the fact that the location itself is associated with Spiffy Pictures, and Spiffy Pictures itself is also based in Chicago, so mathematically it just made sense. Either way, Season 1 was filmed in May 2005, with Season 2 filming in October 2006. However, that was not the first thing of the show to be filmed. Jack, Mary, and Mel, along with the first props and set pieces, were made for the pilot specifically, which, as previously mentioned, filmed in 2003. While yes, we don't know what the set for the pilot really looked like, we can make interpretations based off what was used in the final show. The clubhouse in the series was mostly made up of walls, propped up on much higher platforms, which you can see the clubhouse set itself was positioned much higher than the puppeteers, which allowed them to puppeteer the characters, and just giving a cool illusion of a floor below but it wasn't actually there. Most puppets, such as Jack, Mary, and Mel, were basically just torsos with tubes at their bottom, of course having arms and heads. Various props and pieces were made individually for stuff like the eyes, noses, and any other facial or clothing type detail. Generally speaking, characters were kept mostly simple for this series, but there are a few exceptions to this rule. Most notably, some characters just have musical instruments as accessories that are actually part of their puppet design. Notably, some characters, such as our main trio, are shown to have feet. This was accomplished via one or two ways, depending on what was needed for the shot. But for some such as in the episode The Marching Band and during the show's intro, the feet were made separately from the puppets themselves, which could be puppeteered off camera. The second way of doing it was a little bit more complicated. But basically speaking, each member of the Tornette, along with a few other characters, were given two puppets. One that was a full body with feet, and one that was just a long tube, as I previously mentioned. They basically just swapped and utilized the feet versions whenever were necessary, and they will often use as stunt doubles. Additionally speaking, some extra shots needed some digital additions, such as in the episode The Music Monster. However, generally speaking, having the puppet show feet is something even done on Sesame Street, even at the time, so it wasn't exactly a new thing as for the people filming the show. It's likely that people like David Woodman had experience with giving puppets feet the overall, even if the puppets themselves didn't actually have full bodies. Going back into the sets for a minute, the clubhouse was the only main one, but it wasn't the only one seen, as during the second season we did see a few others. These include the outside of the Giant's home in the series finale, which was constructed similarly to the clubhouse most likely, but there's also Jack's room and the outside of Jack's preschool classroom, both seen in the episode Groundhog Day. Most notably, Jack's bedroom had a bed plot that Jack sat on during the episode. This is most likely makes Jack's bedroom the exception to the rule in terms of how the sets were made. It's likely that the bed prop was actually on the ground, with David Woodman puppeteering Jack directly underneath it. Going back to the clubhouse itself, however, it does have a lot of instruments. Now, generally speaking, the props for these were a lot smaller than the characters, so that way the characters could actually play them. Not every instrument is like this, but a lot of them are, and there are a lot of other replicas seen throughout the series. But what I specifically would like to talk about here is the actual in-universe versions of these instruments. Let me just give you some stats. Jack himself is only 6 years old, and doesn't even have an on-screen father. But yet his mother has bought him $10,000 worth of instruments. And yes, that is a true statement. I really did go throughout the series and count the amount of instruments I saw, and looking up to see what their actual in real life value actually was, compiling them into a Google spreadsheet. This isn't exactly every instrument, I might have missed a couple, but from my look, these instruments are crazy. It's most likely due to inflation because when I made this list, it was early 2025. So generally speaking, these instruments and costs are definitely up for debate. As of the time I looked at it, while yes, some instruments were nice and cheap, a lot of them were pretty expensive, some of them being over $1,000 on their own. Our most expensive instruments being between two specific ones. First off, we have the bass, which individually is our most expensive instrument at $2,167 for one single bass. Now, bass is a big instrument, but this is still kinda crazy. Second place goes to the timpani drum, a foreign instrument that I'm surprised Jack even has his hands on, let alone having two of them. These drums are roughly roughly 2,000 a piece depending on the model you have. The cheapest I could find was about 1,300 for just one of these drums. Given the fact that Henry is shown to be playing two of these during the episode Jack's Big Orchestra, yeah, Jack's mom spent a lot of money on just these two alone. Just to put it simply, Jack's mom must really care about her son's music hobby, and be very rich as well. I mean, she spent a grand total of $10,649.05 on all of these fucking instruments. And that isn't even accounting for the mortgage on the house they own, as well as the amount of money it probably costs to build the clubhouse in the backyard. Holy yikes. Jack, you have one of the greatest moms in all of TV show history. That's all I really have to say. However, with us diving into the show's actual universe for that question, that acts as a nice segue for us to actually start talking about the show in universe for our next segment.
Oh, that was so super swell! I can't even tell you!
We're back, and guess who's coming over? Who is it? Find out on Jack's Big Music Show. Coming up soon on Nick Jr.
With the show getting picked up for a 13-episode first season, you might think we're ready to just jump into the show. Well, not exactly. We got some time here, so let's talk about some other things relating to the show. Like how it all works. Jack's Big Music Show, in its 26 episodes, are generally one of three things. The tournament helps a new guest of the week, a member of the tournament has an issue of some kind, or it's a variety show. Every single episode fits one of these three phrases except for one, that being Jack's Big Orchestra, which is a whole different breed of an episode that we can get to talking about a lot later. When it comes down to it, the show boggles down to this very simple rotation type format, and sometimes does do things to blend the two together, but generally speaking, it kind of just keeps it like this. The show ends up introducing the plot, has an intro song that relates to the plot, and then the plot either A, comes waltzing on through the door, or gets introduced via one of the three main characters. From there, Mel activates his magnificent music machine to activate one of the two music videos. After the music video, we get a little bit of progression with the plot. Mel plays it one more time, the second of two music video plays, and once it's done, the main plot gets a resolution, along with a final song, and the episode eventually closes out with the outro song. Speaking of the intro and outro, let's discuss them very briefly. The intro of the series is flat out iconic, at least in my opinion. It does a decent job introducing the three main characters of the Tonatsus to the audience, especially if this is your first time in the first episode. It kind of acts like you are staying over with Jack for a little playdate, which is very similar to a lot of Nick Jr. shows at the time, particularly Ubi, with the way the show had a main plot, but also acknowledged the audience existence on occasion as well. But it also is a sick beat. One interesting note about the intro, however, is the ending changing between episodes. Now, this is very inconsistent, so bear with me. At the end of the intro, Mel hits a gong with the show's logo on it, ending the intro with, I guess, a big bang. However, it's not exactly the same between episodes. Now, most episodes end with Mel getting hit by the gong getting knocked off screen. However, Season 1 episodes 6 and 13, as well as Season 2 episodes 11 through 13, have Mel hit the gong but then get dizzy and walk off screen. I do not know why it was changed between episodes and why certain episodes used this different version, but it's a thing that happened, and I just wanted to bring it up because it's just really odd. I also gotta take a note to mention the outside shot of Jack walking to the clubhouse. Walking to and from the clubhouse in the intro and outro. Both were done using stop motion, and a much smaller model of Jack, along with a model of his house and the clubhouse. This was very neatly filmed and actually does fit with the rest of the style of the show. For a while, I honestly thought this was the puppet when I was quite young, but in retrospect, you can definitely tell it's a stop motion figure. Another thing to note too is they do use a stop motion figure one other time in the series during the episode Bug Love, where Jack shrinks down to the size of a bug and ends up dancing with musical bugs. I can get to context when I talk about that episode, but I personally think it's really neat that they used the small stop motion model to have them look small compared to the main puppet characters. I think they blended the two styles together pretty well for the time. I think it is pretty cool that we got to see a little bit of stop motion for the show, and it definitely does fit the show's style as well. The outro of the show isn't really all that special compared to the intro. It's just a nice instrumental piece with some little bit of lyrics from Jack and Mary closing the episode. However, the most interesting thing about this music piece is the fact that instruments are always added by the guest characters, and almost always a different rendition is played in every episode. After Jack walks back to his mom's house and they presumably leave for the activity they were going to go to, the episode ends with the normal credits. The credits edits had the names flashing on screen one after another, and they either had a slow version where the credits rolled at a moderately slow pace with Mel just observing the credits and nodding at the audience, and it ending with him dancing dancing from the left away of the screen, or a much faster version that was most likely done because certain episodes had more people on staff doing them. The episodes mostly credited the same kinds of people, with David Rudman and the Lloyd Buckner Band credited first, alongside the guests, and then any kind of guest stars that were in the episode aside from that. And with that, that's really about it when it comes down to the show's format. Now, let's go into the individual characters. I will be going character by character, first off talking about the main trio, and then diving into some of the secondary characters. So, starting off, we got, of course, our main blue mouse, and yes, he is a mouse, 4-year-old Jack.
Hey fellas, give me a buggy beat. Sometimes you get afraid of things that you don't know. You get upset, you start to fret, go running for the door.
So, do you know how little kids are a little crazy and a little bit kind of enthusiastic about their hobbies? Like, to an ascending degree? Well, dial that up to an 11 with Jack. Jack, as I just mentioned, is very overly enthusiastic about music. Like, seriously enthusiastic. My brain thinks, well, it's not confirmed, but he might even have autism. He's so hyperfixated on music. Jack is prone to get a little invested in the lives of his friends and family, and music in general as well. He plays the guitar, but he can play a whole variety of instruments. Strings is cited as his favorite type of instrument, as he's seen playing string instruments quite often throughout the series. And the 2 times he's told once he has to make his own instruments, he makes string instrument replicas. So, yeah. Jack is prone to get into panic attacks when he's a little bit afraid, to put it bluntly.
Ah! My dog's a cat!
Yeah.
My dog's a cat! Ah! My dog's a cat!
Uh-huh.
My dog's a cat! Ah! My dog's a cat! My dog's a cat!
Despite this over-enthusiasm, while he still allows him to zero in on specific things and maybe forget about other aspects, he's still pretty empathetic and selfless. He cares about the people around him and is able to get his friends out of tight situations. Mary and Mel are generally just his trio. The 3 form a band, though it is called the Jack's Music Show Band. I personally call them Jack's Tornette, just because it's easier to say, and it kind of just works. The 3 work as a band together, and they're through and through, and while yes, they sometimes have guest stars, a lot of the songs performed in the series are just their own ideas, and just their natural charm, with Jack being at the forefront. Jack is performed by David Rudman, a seasoned veteran in the puppeteer industry. Rudman got a start in 1981 as an intern at Muppet Inc. And from there, worked prominently with Jim Henson and later Muppet Inquirer. Rudman would later take over to a lot of Richard Hunt's characters, including Scooter, and overall is still quite prominent in the Muppet industry even today, still performing many characters in Sesame Street to this day. On Jack's Music Show, he is generally him alongside his brother Adam Rudman co-wrote the series and co-created it as well. David Rudman is basically responsible for everything regarding the series. He pitched it, developed it, directed it, co-wrote for a lot of the individual episodes, created a lot of the individual designs for the characters, and is head of the company who produced the series, Spiffy Productions. Going back to Jack, David Rudman would often go above and beyond with his performance. As I mentioned, Jack is over-rambunctious about most things, especially music, so Rudman kind of goes over the fire with Jack's performance, and overall, because of this, Jack seems to have an influence on literally every single event that goes on in the series. The one exception is in the episode Jack's Big Orchestra, where his friends and everyone around him end up organizing an orchestra for Jack to conduct, which is mentioned to be a big dream of his. Generally, Jack just makes such a difference in these people's lives, which is crazy because this kid is just a 6-year-old. Honestly, Jack has got a really good future. The show definitely deserves his namesake. It's kind of why I also kept it in my own name of the band, Jack's Tornette, because again, he generally just runs the entire show. And there's no fault to him to it. It's not like he's selfish about it either. He allows his friends to take the reins when necessary, and he provides good advice to them as well. Jack might be a little over-ambiguous sometimes, but overall he's a good-hearted kid with a bright future ahead of him. Although honestly, that sounded really poetic when saying it out loud.
Can do it.
Just take a deep breath.
Just take a deep breath.
I can do it.
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 Just take a deep breath.
Just take a deep breath.
I can do it.
I can do it.
Mary had an accordion. 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 Mary had an accordion.
And I played it all day long.
Yeah, the yellow one playing the accordion, that's Mary. The more kinder side of the group. Though she can be sassy sometimes, as Mary is, generally speaking, just more caring. She cares a lot about her friends, particularly Jack. There are several occasions where she actually helps them out of tight places, but sometimes also contributes to a lot of bickering the two have. The two have a very good relationship. As I've stated earlier, just like Jack, Mary is definitely what keeps the series together. I feel like without the dynamic this trio has, we wouldn't have a series. And Mary is no exception. While yes, she never really got any kind of focus outside of a single episode during season 1, and even then it wasn't even in her name, as Mary still is very integral. In addition to helping Jack out a lot of tight spells throughout the series, she is also good at talking down the different people that Jack can turn at help, and is good at finding solutions. One of my favorite things about Jack and Mary's dynamic is actually these little moments here and there where they put their heads together and think. Literally.
Okay, let's put our heads together, Jack.
Yeah. Wow.
Let's put our heads together and think.
Yeah.
Think.
Hey.
Ah!
It's a common running gag throughout the series, and it just shows the camaraderie between the two. Mary is performed by Alice Deneen, a veteran in the puppeteer industry who had about 10 years of experience by the time she had picked up Mary. Similar to John Kennedy, she also had exposure with David Rudman in the past, both working on Sesame Street. Alice started working on the Muppet industry a lot later than David, but the two soon became scene partners on Sesame Street. And because of this, David Rudman basically just knew her very well as a person. So you can probably guess why she was hired to be Mary. The two were used to working with each other, so as puppeteers they worked great on set. Anyway, Alice actually looked at a lot of the scripts and gave her own notes as the series went on. She was basically a person that Woodman would always consult before approving an episode. Although Mary wasn't always played by Alice. I'll go into this a little bit later, but during the original pilot of Jack's Big Music Show, simply known as Jack's Big Show, Mary was actually played by Kathy Richardson. It is unknown what Kathy Richardson's portrayal of Mary was like. As the pilot, as of the time of recording, has not been found, nor is there really much on the pilot really known. I would love to see how Kathy Richardson performed Mary in comparison to Alice. But as is, Alice does a really good job performing Mary. I think she's perfect for the role. I can't say I'm glad that Kathy didn't stay on as Mary. I'm glad she was still involved in the show and got to play a different role. But because I don't know how she performed as Mary, nor any of the details of the pilot, nor even really know the plot description, which again, I can get to later, I can't even really give much of an opinion on Kathy being in the role. All I can say is that Alice did a good job herself. And Mary, yes, probably the least notable of the three, still very important and very integral to the group's dynamic.
Dance and sing with us.
Mary had an accordion. Mary had an accordion and played it all day long.
Now the musical magical magician. Gather round and let's have a listen.
Finally, we have Mel the dog, basically Jack Turnett's pseudo drum guy and musical magical magician. Yep, this pink and green dog knows magic. And yes, if you have been questioning for this entire video, like, why is there a pink and green dog in the cast? Well, I couldn't tell you. There was just a pink and green dog in the cast. Deal with it. Mel is basically able to conjure up anything an episode needs in order to work well. Basically, any invention of any nature he can basically make, even if it's not music related. Like, for example, fixing an alien spaceship. Okay, he doesn't technically fix the ship, but he is able to find the problem on a spaceship that, he's never seen before. Yeah, this dog might as well just be psychic at this point. Mel the dog is played by John Kennedy. Say it with me now, another veteran in the puppeteer industry, although he was the least experienced of the main three. Kennedy was a legend in terms of the music performance and puppeteering. He had experience in both, studied in music, and gained a reputation for being a drum guy and someone you would call if you wanted a musical puppeteer. So I think you can probably guess why he was called on to perform Mel. Before this, he hadn't worked with David Rudman too much. Rudman did come on a couple of times as productions had Kennedy as a performer, but their main experience together comes from the few times they were on Sesame Street together, meaning that Jack's Big Music Show was essentially the first time the two worked together seriously. This really didn't matter though. John Kennedy still had the experience of performing Mel with flair, and Mel is definitely the character who needed that. Despite having no dialogue as a character, Mel is just kinda crazy sometimes. What more is there to say? He's a pink and green dog who's very unpredictable. That's the long and the short of it. That's Mel the dog. Now that we've covered the main trio, let's start talking about some of the other characters, specifically the secondary characters. Now, there is a difference between a secondary character and a guest star. A guest star is a character who appears only in that episode. So characters like the Little Bad Wolf, Henry Monster, or the Music Genie, etc. All characters who are mostly exclusive to their specific episode, or don't play a large role in other episodes. A secondary character in this case that appears semi-regularly throughout the series as a repeating force. There are only a couple of characters with this mantra. First up, we got the Swordsman Quartet. This is a group of musical performers that perform a chorus or sing to music in almost every episode. There are only about 3 or 4 episodes they end up missing. The Swordsman Quartet are a group of 4 music performers played by Robert Boker, Paul Langford, Jeffrey W. Merrill, and Johnny N. Walton. The 4 of them generally just come in randomly to sing a chorus that range from pretty okay to really fucking good. I'd argue that these 4 are the highlights of a lot of episodes. The group is based off the Sportsman Quartet from the Jack Benny Show, which, as previously mentioned, was a main inspiration for the Jack's Music Show series. There wasn't really that much more to note about them, but they're an excellent presence in any episode that has them in it, and the episodes that are missing them in it, it's kind of just suffer as a result. They may still be good episodes, but just missing the usual occurrence of the Swordsman Quartet definitely brings the score down, at least for me. Just because other episodes have them, and instantly escalate like how good they are just because they do make an appearance. Next up, we got Lori Buckner and her band. Lori Buckner was a music star and guitarist who was just making her early rise at the time of Jack's Music Show's early filming. It is unknown how exactly she and her band were hired for Jack's Music Show, but as she stated herself, they were just asked to do the pilot. David Wedman and the crew ended up liking the performance during the pilot, and once the series was greenlit, they were asked to do a lot more episodes. Now, initially speaking, Lori mentions that she wasn't planning to do the entire series, but David Wedman had asked her to, so they drew up a contract, and she performed in every single episode except for one, that being Jack's Big Oops. I don't exactly know the reason why she wasn't in this episode. If I had to guess, they just had one extra third-party track and didn't have a Lori Buckner track for this episode, so they just slotted that in. I think it was definitely planned from the start to not have Lori in this episode, but it is just a little weird. It also might be compensation for the season 2 episode, Lori's Big Song, which specifically has Lori Buckner as a guest star for the episode because it's specifically about her and a song she's going to perform with all these animals. Her making an actual physical appearance on set with everyone else, this being the only time that ends up happening throughout the series, I think having to arrange that might be a reason why we're missing a song from her for Jack's Big Oops. Otherwise, Lori Buckner's songs are range from pretty decent to pretty good to honestly way too kiddish for me personally. There's definitely a range for sure, and it's pretty much a gamble on what you're gonna get. I'd say during season 2, she's a lot more consistent with bringing home absolute bangers, but it definitely still is a hit and miss with her. She also performs with her bandmates Susie Lambert and Brady Weinberg, with Bobby Golden joining on for the single song, Farm Song, in the episode Letter of the Country Squirrel. There isn't really much to note about the 3 of them, but Lori But Lloyd Bookner's presence in an episode never really did it for me personally. Unlike the Sorcerer Quartet, where they often just add so much to an episode that they make an appearance, Lloyd Bookner, despite being in almost every single episode, she really doesn't add much to a majority of them. A lot of the songs she ends up doing feel a little bit unrelated to the main plot, and thus just kind of feel shoehorned in. But as the series went on, and especially for season 2, they were much better at making the songs more related to the individual episodes. I think, if I had to take a guess, for season 1, Lloyd Bookner and the band were just told to come up with 13 good song ideas that a kid could enjoy while listening to, that a kid could enjoy and dance to. While for season 2, they were actually given the concepts for each episode and told to make a song around that concept, so that way it fits better. At least if you were to ask me, that is why I think the songs feel so better implemented for season 2. Last up, I'd like to talk about parents. More specifically, Jack's mom and dad. Now, parents in Jack's music show isn't exactly a concept. It's like peanuts. Yeah, it is very alleged that these characters have parents, absolutely, but a lot of them are not mentioned, let alone seen. Mary at least does have a dad, because he is mentioned offhandedly in a song.
Once I took a hike with my dad, and we stood on a mountaintop.
And Jack's mom is heard at the end of at the beginning and end of every episode. Every other kid character in the show isn't always shown to have a parent at all, with the exceptions of Leonard the Country Squirrel, where we actually do see his mother, who does have some lines. And there's also Spunky the Alien, who is also mentioned to have parents, and they are also seen during the episode. It's also pretty likely that the character Phil the Cuckoo Bird has parents that can be seen in this shot, but we don't specifically know which ones are his parents. We don't even know if they are in this shot. I think it's just a natural assumption, just given the fact that he cares so much about performing the cuckoo dance correctly. It would have been, I would think they'd be doing the dance alongside him if it really was that big of a tradition for the Cuckoo Birds. I can get more into that later for the episode, but that's just my assumption. The only really actual relationship we see in this show when it comes down to an actual romantic relationship is during the season finale between the giant and his wife, Shala Lala. That's literally the exception. Any other relationship is purely platonic or almost non-existent, because most characters in this show only appear on a single episode each. Why am I discussing this? Well, Jack isn't even the exception to this rule. As mentioned just earlier, Jack's mom is heard in every episode, but is never physically seen, and we know for a fact that a puppet was never fully built for her. She was performed by guest star Kathy Richardson, who I feel like I keep on talking about throughout this video, but she really did make a lot of early contributions during the show's production. Playing Jack's mom throughout the series is one of them, and she does a pretty decent job. There isn't really much to the role. It's just telling Jack that he's late that's almost time to go for plank activity, and then her commenting on what will happen that day that Jack tells her. That's really about it when it comes down to her. We don't really know the kind of person she is. Jack never even brings her up unless he specifically calls to him. So yeah, the only real exception is in the episode Groundhog Day, where Jack mentions that she actually helped him come up with a song to help him make it through his first day of preschool. That's really about it when it comes down to Jack's mother. And Jack's father is even more elusive. First off, he's never even mentioned throughout the series. Not once. Not once is Jack's dad even somewhat mentioned in the series. So, what kind of person could he have been? Well, here's what I was able to put together. See, when I was a lot younger, I once had a dream where Jack's dad was a caveman, and performed in an episode alongside Jack, and he had very old folktale type music. It was kind of more of a, Wild West type of vibe, but generally speaking, I didn't really have much of a basis for this, nor do I really remember much about the dream. However, I do have a compromise. I went into ChatGPT and told it to build on this concept. And here's what it came up with. It came up with a character with the name Trog Thunderstone, a caveman musician swimming a leather jacket and sunglasses that blended prehistoric and rock star vibes. He was very charismatic and spoke in rock and roll slang most of the time. I also asked him to come up for a reason for why he'd be absent in the family and what his relationship could have been with Jack and his mother. The reason why he came up for his absence was because he was touring around with his band known as the Stone Age Shakers, which honestly is a name that slaps, like, fully. While on his travels, he ends up sending back postcards along with whale instruments to Jack's clubhouse. And this could work as a pseudo-explanation by how the frick that Jack's mom can afford to pay all these instruments. You could even make an interpretation that Jack's guitar that he has throughout the series is the exact guitar that his dad used to play when he was younger. If Jack's dad was even somewhat mentioned throughout the series, it would have been interesting to see what official role he had played. But I do think what ChatGPT provides is a really interesting take on the idea. Jack's dad just being this really rich musician would kind of explain why he's not present throughout the series. And you can kind of assume that Jack just doesn't really see him much, which is why he doesn't really talk about him much. ChatGPT also went on to mention that Jack would have idolized him and wished to be more like him and for him to be around more, with Jack's mom also supporting his career as well. This is definitely the best case scenario when it comes down to it, and could even provide an explanation for some of the questions like, again, how does Jack have all these random instruments? Aside from Mel just being fucking weird and just hunting for a lot of these instruments in the wild. Because at this point, that's the only explanation I could come up with for his musical funk. Mel is clearly more intelligent than the rest of the cast combined, so there's gotta be a reason for that. And that's really about it when it comes down to the secondary cast of the show. There wasn't really much to it, but there are some interesting little trinkets here and there that I was glad I was able to go through with you guys. With that right there, we've got one more last thing to talk about before heading into the series proper. I mentioned talking about the pilot of Jack's Music Show, Jack's Big Show, back in an earlier segment. Well, let's dive deeper into that, shall we? Lastly, let me go into that original pilot. As previously mentioned, the pilot was filmed in 2003, known as Jack's Big Show. It was a one-shot film of the later season 2 episode, Jack Bunny. The final episode filmed for the actual series being a revised version of the pilot script, although we don't really know in what way. We don't really know how the pilot differed from the original in most ways, like we don't know if the format was kept the same, or even if the same set was used or anything like that. But here's some basic things we do know about it. We know David and Adam Rudman wrote and directed the episode. We know that the composers, Tom Harnett and Terry Fryer, composed the music for it. And we also know that Laurie Buckner recorded some segments for it. Jack was played by David Rudman, obviously, but as previously mentioned, Mary was not played by Alice Deneen at this point. She was actually played by future guest star Kathy Richardson. I mentioned this very briefly in Mary's segment, but let me go into it just a bit more. Kathy Richardson was brought on to play Mary as a voiceover. She did not actually puppeteer the actual puppet. So the question is, how do we know that Kathy played Mary? This is definitely a piece of random information for sure, and a pretty deep production note. So how do we know? Well, a music blog site known as the Tomorrow's Verse happened to interview Kathy Richardson in 2011, where she happened to mention the original pilot and playing Mary. She said of playing Mary, in the pilot, I was the voice of one of the puppets. I was so excited about that since I love to do funny voices, and that's something I've always wanted to try. After the show got picked up, they decided it would be difficult to dub in the voice, so they went with a puppeteer to do the voice and the puppet. Good news, bad news though. Bad news, I wasn't going to be the voice of Mary. Good news, I was going to be on camera as myself. I was originally devastated, but then I thought it over and said, it's still cool to be on TV. I think that's a really interesting take to have on it. but a very mature and respected one for sure. I definitely think there are mantras to both choices. Although we've never heard Kathy's take on Mary, because the pilot is unavailable. Similarly, Lori Buckner also mentioned the pilot during an interview she had taken during the same year of 2011, although we don't have an exact date. She was interviewed while out filming her latest album at the time, known as Party Day, by a site known as DVD Talk. Yeah, really random, I know. No, during this interview, she said of the pilots, "When I first did it, they asked me to be part of the pilot, and wanted to they tried to see if that show or another show was going to be aired. The pilot went over really well, and it got such a good response from us playing with Bryant, Moa, and Susie Lambert, and myself at the time in the musical breaks, that they asked us to be on every episode. Originally, we were just going to do a couple of the episodes. That was really great for us, because it was a really fun thing to be a part of." Yeah, that definitely gives some perspective on Lori's involvement in the show. Lori is in every single episode except for one. Although I am personally very curious who referred Lori to David Woodman. More specifically, just how did he know to ask her? Where did they meet? That's my personal curiosity about this. About the fact that she was just asked to do it off the cuff. In terms of availability, the pilot, as I've mentioned, has not been found in any form. And again, the only evidence of its existence are the two interviews, and like I said earlier, the note on Mark Lucio's resume. The pilot has never been shown to the public in full, and it's likely, and the only copy of it is likely in Nickelodeon's vault. Although, I do have my theories on how we might be able to get a copy. Well, yes, there is most definitely one at Nickelodeon's headquarters, because this is a recent enough pilot where I would think they would have saved it somewhere. But there's also a possibility that either David or Adam Woodman might have a copy of it, just in their storage somewhere. So if anyone has a reliable way of contacting them and asking, that would be a cool thing to unearth if they end up having a copy. Otherwise, there really isn't any other way to see this. It's a very confidential piece of media for sure, and I am very confident Nickelodeon wouldn't care about unearthing it. It would be really cool to see. I am personally very curious to see what would have changed, but honestly, it's not a tight loss. Technically speaking, we have a version of the pilot in terms of the final episode that aired, in terms of the episode Jack Bunny that aired during season 2. And we basically know what came of it. It just would be nice just to see, the early state the show was at this point, and how the show got the change from then to the first episode of the series that would end up getting filmed. But with that right there, we can finally wrap up the pre-production part of this video. For the next segment, we will finally be diving into the show itself.
Here's one budding artist's cozy little creation. All this month, Noggin is watching the leaves change and making drawings that help us fall into autumn. Your preschooler can make more masterpieces with the Doodle Pad at Noggin.com.
Thanks again for helping us out. This pie is just about the most lip-smackingly delicious pie I've ever tasted. What do you think, Z? My words exactly. Jack's Big Music Show is next.
Jack's Big Music Show enhances preschoolers' appreciation and understanding of music, including tempo, rhythm, dynamics through interactive play, and expands their awareness of the diversity of musical instruments and styles.
Hey there, Editing Crystal here. Sorry to say we can't dive into the entire show today. I'd need another 2 hours for that, and this video needs at least another month or so in the oven. So let me just say this. That date, September 12th, 2025, yeah, that's the show's 20th anniversary. I don't think there's better time than any to release this full video. Yeah, I purely wanted to put this together as a way to draw up hype for it, and just to see how interested people were in the topic. Don't worry, no matter how this preview turns out, you'll see the full video on that date. I'm committing to that, and that is my mission. This video has been in production for almost 2 years at this point, and it will be a full 2 years by the time the video goes up in full. I will tell you right now that we'll be diving into the whole series from here. In the full video, we'll be talking about all the 2 seasons and everything that goes along with it. But this video, I purely wanted to show you guys the pre-production side of things and how we all get to this series itself. Oh, if you're interested now, I hope you're ready for the full thing. I am very excited to bring the rest to you. The full video will include a redone version of this preview, as well as everything else. I'm not going to tell you all the new stuff you'll see in the preview. But one thing I'd love is you guys' input. But 2 things I'd love to add to the preview that I can't really do right now is 1, interviewing one of the cast members from the show, and seeing if I could ask some specific questions about the show itself, which could easily add on some time to the history of the show section. But I'd also love to see if people are interested in voice acting that little Lori Buckner and Kathy Richardson's quotes from the pilot section of the video. Even I think it's a little weird that my own voice does those parts, so it'd be nice if I can get someone else to do it. If anyone watching this video is interested in that, you can let me know in the comments and we can get talking. Either way, I hope you guys are excited for the full thing, and I hope to see you guys when it comes out on September 12th. Peace.
There's just one more thing we want you to know. You're always